For this session. This session is sponsored by Susquehanna Sustainable Business Network. It's one of the organizations that work in the city and county of Lancaster to promote sustainability, and we're happy to have several of our member businesses involved in wellness and happiness. So we've invited them to come to Millersville this afternoon to talk to us about how to cope with stress and increase our well-being. And these are two very authentic individuals, and I think you'll leave here with some really good advice to get you on your way, because midterms is only in a few weeks. So I'd like first to introduce Dana Elia. She's owner of Fusion Integrative Health and Wellness, Lancaster. Dana holds a Bachelor of Science in Human Ecology Dietetics from Montclair State University and a Master's of Health Sciences in Integrative Health and Wellness from Rutgers University. Dana is a registered dietitian nutritionist with over 20 years of experience in medical nutrition therapy, integrative and functional nutrition, and health and wellness coaching. Dana is an adjunct faculty member at the PA College of Health Sciences and teaches group classes and lectures on a variety of health-related topics to audiences of all age ranges for the general public, as well as continuing medical education programs to healthcare providers and professional organizations. And she has brought with her some raisins. And one of her activities is that you need to have 2 or 3 raisins in your hand. Can you raise your hand right now if you do not have raisins? Okay. All right. And you need raisins over here? Okay. You know what? If somebody could come down here, there's 3 bowls of raisins. Somebody could just grab one. I'm going to pick, yeah, there you go. Come right down here and grab one. And you guys can pass it around that side. So everybody has just a couple of raisins. Here's Dana.
Thanks, Stacy, and thanks everybody for having me here today. So the first part of our time together, we're going to be focusing on mindful eating and its relation with happiness. So how many of you think food equates to happiness, right? Since this is the topic of the conference here, right? Okay. Well, hopefully by the end of my 30 minutes, I'll provide you with some tools to help you improve the relationship that you have with food and show you that, yes, food can bring happiness, but we want to do that in a positive way. Okay? So a couple of points for you to ponder over the next 30 minutes is, how would you describe your personal relationship with food? Is it a positive relationship? Is it an adversarial relationship? Do you find yourself constantly thinking about food? Or does food also bring with you an element of stress? How many of you eat for pleasure? Right? I think everybody. How many of you eat out of boredom? Okay. Eat out of stress? Okay. Eat when you're tired? Okay. All right. And can you identify the difference between when you're hungry and when you're full? Satiety. Do you know the difference between hunger and fullness? Okay, how many of you would say yes, you can distinguish the difference? Okay, good. Okay. So what is mindfulness? How many here are familiar with mindfulness, whether it's for mindfulness-based stress reduction practices, mindfulness for pain management, mindfulness techniques to help you sleep, or mindfulness for eating? So how many of you have actually heard or been exposed to mindfulness? Okay. Anybody here routinely engaging in a mindfulness practice? Okay. Well, hopefully at the end of this workshop this afternoon, you'll have a renewed interest or sparked an interest in applying mindfulness to your daily routine. Okay. So what actually is mindfulness? Mindfulness means that you're paying deliberate attention. Okay, so you're being fully aware in the present moment. So it's really not focusing on the past. It's not worrying about the future. It's bringing the full focus of your attention to the present. And that present moment awareness also comes from a place of non-judgment. So it's non-judgmental awareness. So it's really creating a safe space for your awareness. You're not applying any sort of judgment or criticism to your present awareness. So building upon that, how do we take that present moment, non-judgmental awareness and apply it to eating? So what actually is mindful eating? Well, it's eating with intention or eating with awareness. So how many of us can sit here and say that every time we sit down to a meal or snack, we are presently aware in that moment and our attention is focused purely on the food? Not many of us, right? Usually we're distracted. We're doing something else at the same time that we're eating, okay? So when you're mindfully eating, you're bringing the focus of your attention to just that, to the food, to eating, okay? And you're being completely aware of the sensation of that eating experience, the taste, the flavor, the sensations in your mouth. So you all said at the beginning that you equate food with happiness or food with pleasure. But if you're not eating with intention or not eating with your focus of your attention on mindfully eating, you may not be fully deriving as much happiness from your relationship with food as you could be. Okay? And eating mindfully is also acknowledging the sensations of chewing, swallowing, mouthful by mouthful, bit by bit. So most of us spend our time eating mindlessly. And why do we want to begin to practice mindful eating as opposed to mindless eating? Is that we know that mindfulness practices bring with it multiple layers of benefits with it. So positive impact not only on your psychological health, but also on your physical health. And when you look at evidence-based literature surrounding mindfulness practices, time and time again, you do see positive outcomes in applying mindfulness to not only eating, but pain management, stress management. So multiple layers for improving that whole mind-body experience using mindfulness. And the same applies to using it in terms of dealing with your food. So if you're dealing with health issues, stress, depression, anxiety, pain, mindfulness might be a practice that you want to begin looking into. So for mindful eating, there's a whole subset of applications for mindfulness practices in battling obesity and as well as dealing with eating disorder patients. Okay, bringing that present moment non-judgmental awareness to their eating has proven to improve outcomes. Okay? And it's also helps to provide you an overall sense of balance and well-being. So even if someone is not dealing with weight-related issues or disordered eating patterns, just eating mindfully helps your overall well-being. And it is a realistic tool and resource for you to use to help improve your personal fulfillment and improve your overall level of happiness. Okay? So when we look at data just showing how often we're eating mindlessly as opposed to eating mindfully, you can see that we spend about an average of an hour to an hour and 12 minutes per day eating, but yet, most Americans are spending about 3 hours per day watching television or engaging in some sort of electronic gaming or devicing watching television. But yet when it comes to sitting down and having a meal, we know that our school students are really only spending about 7 to 12 minutes actually sitting down and eating their lunch. So, how happy, how fulfilled can you be from a meal if you're really just gulping it down and not having that time to sit and bring your focus of your attention to each bite, each sensation, each taste. We're just barely beginning to scratch the surface of understanding that mind-body connection, especially when it comes to eating and behavior. So the field of mindfulness is continuing to grow, continuing to be researched. Okay? But we do know that digestion and that mind-body connection is greatly impacted. So often in my practice, patients can lose weight just by being more focused in their meals because they are deriving more fulfillment and more happiness from their food. So there's actually been studies done of children who were allowed to snack while they were playing a video game or watching TV. And then when they were surveyed afterwards to ask them what they ate and how much they had eaten, they couldn't tell you what they had eaten or how much they had eaten. So that connection gets broken if you're not eating with attention, with awareness. Okay? So digestive stress, gas, anybody who deals with any of those IBS umbrella type symptoms, eating more mindfully is one of the first interventions that's often recommended for people, because if you're not eating mindfully, you could potentially be, swallowing excess air if you're talking while you're trying to eat. So just multiple applications for using mindful eating. In terms of being able to send those signals from the gut to the brain, eating mindfully actually slows down the eating behavior. So thus you're actually giving that communication pathway time to work, time for your stomach to send those signals up to your brain to let you know, hey, I'm satisfied, I'm satiated, I've had enough. Okay? So mindful eating is a powerful tool. It helps to keep you in the present and thus helps you to begin to facilitate change, and helps to improve a positive relationship with your food. So we've become a culture of multitasking, and unfortunately a lot of times our food becomes one of the victims, or our meal times becomes one of these silent victims of our time constraints and trying to multitask. So how often are you eating while doing homework? How often are you eating while you're on the phone? How many times are you eating while you're driving from point A to point B? So when was the last time that you actually sat down to a meal or a snack and were not distracted by doing anything else, that you were actually focusing completely on that meal? Can anybody say that they've done that in the last 24 hours? Okay, so a few of you, but not most of us. So, right there, that should just shed some light on your relationship with food. So a couple of basic techniques in mindful eating, and the first thing is called the first mindful bite. Okay, so most of us will recognize that the first bite of a food is almost always the most flavorful. But why is it as we continue to move through the meal, each subsequent bite does not seem as flavorful or give you that main flavor punch? Well, a lot of it is because by the time you're getting into that third, fourth, fifth bite, your focus of your attention has moved off of the food, and now you're conversing, you're watching TV, you're texting, you're checking social media or whatever else you're doing. Your attention has shifted away from your meal, and thus that impact of all of those flavors and sensations are diminished. So this is a basic technique that you can use with any solid food, and in the interest of time, we're just going to go through it fairly quickly. Okay, but there's a resource slide at the end of the presentation. But one of the easiest things, if you're looking for more information on mindful eating, is actually going to the Center for Mindful Eating, and their website is tcme.org. Great resource. It's great place to start for anyone who's interested in pursuing more of this practice. So when you're starting off with a mindful bite, you're going to take a small amount of food. So for example, you can use a small piece of chocolate. Okay? And as you're bringing the food to your mouth, you really want to become aware of your movements. Okay? So, how does that process start? Okay? Then once the food is in your mouth, you want to clear your hands. So put down the silverware. Why is it that generally while we're chewing, we're already starting to cut up and fill up our fork or spoon again with the next bite? Take a moment, put the silverware down. Okay? So you want to bring your laser sharp focus of attention to that bite and begin to concentrate on the taste of the food that you're eating. Concentrate on chewing. Concentrate on the sensation in your mouth. And you want to keep chewing until the consistency of the food is smooth. Okay? Waiting for your body's signal that it's now okay to swallow. The consistency is right. Now you want to swallow. Okay? After you swallow, before you bring your next bite up, take a few seconds and just pause. Okay, kind of reflect on the flavor, the taste, the sensation. Okay? So there's four parts to mindfully eating. Arriving at that food, awakening to the sensations of the food, tuning into your body in terms of feeling it go down your throat, and then service with the food. So we'll touch briefly upon each step. Okay? So you're aware. Arriving means even before the first bite has gone into your mouth, you're beginning to become aware that food has entered into your space. Okay? So you're already beginning to prepare and bring your awareness to the meal. Okay? It may sound really simple, but for a lot of people it's more difficult than what it actually is. So shifting that attention to actually setting down and beginning a meal. Okay? We kind of take this step for granted. We just sit down and start eating. Okay? So there's an actual process to step one, to arriving. So you want to begin just using a couple of these points. You don't have to go through all of them, but even as you're starting to engage in this practice, if you just take a couple of these bullets and apply it to the next time that you're sitting with a meal. So when's the last time that you really looked at the shape, the size, the color, the texture of the foods that you're about to sit down and enjoy? So, and if you begin this step and take it seriously, you'll set the stage for being more mindful and present with this meal. The next step is awakening. So you want to pay attention to all the aspects of the food. When you awaken in a mindful eating practice, you're actually beginning to be more aware of the tastes and the sensations, the changing of the flavors, aromas, textures, what's going on in your mouth. Are you salivating? Your nose, more of a full body experience. Okay? And a mindful eater is really going to spend at least one moment during each bite to actually wake up to your food. So a couple of different bites. You're going to look at shape and color. You can focus on the flavor or the aftertaste, texture, sounds. Okay. Have we ever really thought about the sounds that food makes? Crunchy versus mushy, okay? Chips versus carrot sticks, things like that. And then gratitude. How often are we embodying gratitude or being grateful for the food that we're consuming? That's another component of a mindful practice. So when you're moving on to the third step and tuning into your body, you're paying close attention to yourself as you're eating. Okay? You become more aware of how many times do you need to chew before you get that signal that it's comfortable to swallow. Okay? So if you remember your grandmother telling you, chew something 20 times before you swallow. Well, you're more mindful when you're actually counting how many chews you're taking before you're swallowing your food. Okay? And most mindful eaters actually they develop a bit of a baseline number that they really know that it takes X amount of numbers of chews before they get that comfort signal to begin to swallow. Okay. When you're tuning into your body and you're mindful eating, you'll begin to notice any emotions that come up for you while you're eating, and notice how your body is feeling while you're eating. Don't be afraid to acknowledge those emotions. Remember, acknowledging in present moment awareness in that safe space. It's non-judgmental awareness. And when you're eating mindfully, there really is no good or bad foods. A mindful eater is not a guilty eater, because when you're eating more mindfully, you begin to have an awareness of what is driving your choices behind why you're eating. Am I hungry? Am I bored? Am I lonely? Am I tired? So you can address that through a mindfulness practice. Okay? And then step 4 is that service. So what is all of the activities that are also going around during that meal time? Okay? So making your meal times an entire event. What goes into setting the table, clearing the table, creating a comfortable space and atmosphere from which to have a positive, happy relationship with your food. Okay? So when you're adopting a more deliberate practice in your meals, you're actually going to be able to heighten the relationship that you have with food and actually heighten the happiness and the positive effect and the impact that your meals and snacks have on your routine. So you ready to give it a try? This is where your raisins come in. So everybody have a raisin? All right, so get that raisin out. All you need is just one. Okay? So for your mindful eating practice, what you want to do, get comfortable. Sit comfortable in your chair. Kind of clear your minds. Put down the devices. Put down the phones, pens, everything else. The only thing that you want to have in your hands is your raisin. Okay? Get comfortable. Have your raisin. Place your raisin in your hands. Okay? Examine this as if this was the very first time you've ever seen a raisin. Okay? So if this was a brand new food to you, really open your mind and have the beginner's mind. This is the first time that you've seen a raisin. Examine it. Okay? Imagine its plump self. Imagine how this raisin started. How did it start? It started as a grape on the vine. So, just begin to imagine the journey that this raisin has taken from being grown on the vine to being picked to being packaged to ending up at the giant on Fruitville Pike and now in your hands. Okay? So, as you begin to look at this raisin, become more conscious of what you're seeing. The shape, the texture, the size. Is it a plump raisin? Is it a more dry raisin? What's the texture? Look at the ridges. Are the ridges symmetrical? Does one side seem to have more ridges than the other? Is it soft? Is it hard? How would you describe that raisin to someone if you had to, write a few sentences about your raisin? Okay. Now, raise it up to your nose and smell it. Does it smell like a raisin? Does it smell like something else? And are you anticipating eating this raisin? Have you noticed any changes yet in your mouth as you're beginning to be more presently aware of an item of food in your hands and as you've brought your attention to this raisin? How does the raisin feel? How small is it in your hand? You can even actually bring it up to your ear and roll it around in your fingers. Anybody ever listen to a raisin? Okay. Does it make any noises? Does it sound squishy? Is it crackling? Okay. So, this is one of those exercises where it's actually okay to play with your food. Okay. So now you want to place the raisin in your mouth, but don't bite it just yet. Just set it on your tongue. Become aware of what your tongue is doing. Now you want to bite ever so lightly into that raisin. Okay? Does it feel squishy? Does it feel crunchy? Chew it 3 times and then stop. Now, how would you describe the flavor of that raisin? Anybody willing to share how they would describe it? Was your raisin flavorful? How many of you would say it was flavorful? How many of you noticed that your mouth was beginning to salivate just as you were playing with your raisin, as you were examining it? Yes. Okay. How many of you would say that you were actually a bit shocked at how strong the flavor of one raisin actually was? Was it as much as you had expected it to be? Okay? Or was it a little bit more powerful in flavor than what you would expect? Okay? How many would say it was more powerful? Yeah? Okay. So that's a pretty common response with a raisin meditation because you've brought your awareness and you've honed in on the present moment in eating that raisin. So for those of us who are raisin eaters, how many times are you getting, a couple of tablespoons of raisins all at once and getting the same amount of flavor as you just got from eating one raisin? So imagine the possibilities here, how you can apply eating with awareness to your daily life and to your routine. If you feel like you're not getting a positive relationship with food, then this might be a practice to help begin healing that relationship. Okay? If you haven't already done so, you can go ahead and swallow your raisin. And be aware of what you're sensing as you've swallowed the raisin. So if you're struggling with food or with weight issues, just start off with being more mindful of your portion sizes. If your energy levels, if your stamina is not where you'd like it to be, well, this is a practice that you can easily begin bringing into your daily routine. So just be aware of your mindful portions. Okay? And this is another useful tool. How many of you are familiar with the My Plate campaign that replaced the My Pyramid? Okay? So I want to leave you with just a mindful eating plate. Okay? So yes, you can apply the My Plate to your food choices, but I would encourage you also to incorporate a mindful eating plate. So begin with observation. Observe your environment. Observe the area and the food that you're about to consume. Okay? You want to be in the moment. Bring your awareness and your attention to the present moment. Savor each bite. Okay? So let each and every bite of a meal or a snack be a mindful bite. And that first bite phenomenon will continue for the whole meal. Okay? And part of that process in incorporating more happiness into your meal is you are then allowing that communication from the mind and the body and that pathway to have no traffic, and it's going to be able to clearly communicate and do its job and be able to signal you when you're satisfied. Okay? And don't forget, one of the main pillars of mindfulness is that non-judgmental awareness, and that's the key to increase your awareness. So, that's just one useful tool to help increasing your happiness. Holly's going to give you a couple of other tools that you can add to your resource toolbox for mindfulness and stress management. Any questions? All right, thanks for your attention.
While Holly's getting set up, I just want to introduce you. Maybe we can start a new trend. Instead of saying bon appetit, we can say happy eating. Holly Miller is the founder of Healing Dynamics Lancaster. Holly is an RN graduate from the University of Pennsylvania Hospital School of Nursing and from Lebanon Valley College in Health Care Administration. She's a board-certified holistic nurse and health and wellness coach. Holly is a certified instructor with Brian Luke Seward's Holistic Stress Management with training in Hearth Math and Tai Chi Easy. Holly holds workshops and gives presentations on many areas of holistic health, including holistic stress management and effective coping skills.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm going to build a bridge here between what Dana just did with you and what I'm going to be doing. And that is, from my perspective, there's two ways to come at stress. And one is by relaxation techniques. And the relaxation techniques bring you back when you're stressed out. It brings you back to homeostasis, which is balance in your body and your spirit, right? And then the other, it addresses the symptoms of stress, where your hair feels like you put your armpits are itchy and your head's itchy. You're just feeling the stress of things. So that whole thing about mindfulness, eating, that Dana just walked you through, shifted your consciousness in that moment that you were doing that exercise. And again, it brought you to homeostasis, and it also intercepted the stress response. What she did there was brought you to mental imagery, some visualization, some breath. You had to slow down your breathing a little bit, and then also nutrition. Now, what I'm going to be doing is more on the coping mechanisms, the coping skills and techniques in response to stress. Can all of you see this quote? Just like you to read it. This again builds the bridge of why this is important. So I'm going to ask you, if you've read that, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best you've ever been, remember a time in your life when you were, a 10 with your physical vitality. And many of you might be that just today. But right now, in this moment, in this room, at this very present moment, as you're sitting in that chair, what is your level of physical vitality on a scale of 1 to 10? Are you a little tired? Are you a little chilly? I know I've been putting on my scarf to keep warm. Where are you on a scale of 1 to 10 with your emotional balance? 10 being the best you've ever been. On a scale of 1 to 10, where are you with your mental clarity? And you're answering this question, keep that number in your mind or write it down, whatever you want to do. And then the last question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you with your connection with the divine? With something other than yourself, something bigger and larger. So I want to just, we've been talking about happiness today, and I like to talk to you because I'm a health and well-being coach. So I'd like to talk to you about my definition of well-being. And certainly it is the alignment or the balance and alignment, but it's mind, body, spirit, of course. But there's other ways to describe well-being. And it could be where you would describe yourself as being content, where you would feel connected to purpose, that you are energized, you're in harmony, all is well, that you're happy. That's a good one. I mean, that one that we frequently use, right? That you feel prosperous. And here's another one, and that's called feeling safe. That you're safe, right? So, bringing in these definitions, this quote from Brian Luke Seward, who is my holistic stress management instructor. He's written many books. One of them was called Stress, spelled backwards, is Desserts. And that launch is that the bad times can open up windows of opportunity for us. So I want to just bring that to you. So we're going to be talking about some effective coping skills and why are they important? What do they bring to you? Well, first of all, they increase your awareness of any problems that you might be having. Sometimes we just feel this low-level anxiety. Of course, you can probably name off a couple things of what's going on. You're short of money. You know, you have too much work and too little time to do it. Some of your classes are not really congruent with your the way you're learning. It might be too, information. We can sometimes get clarity maybe about our roommate, our living situation, maybe we're homesick. There's so many things that can come to mind really quickly, but sometimes we have to go deeper. And these coping skills and techniques help us bring more awareness to that. The other factors about why these techniques are important, it helps you work towards a peaceful resolution of any of your problems, and also it promotes a sense of peace of mind. So what are they? What are some of the coping skills and techniques? Well, the visuals up here would have you indicate that there's humor therapy. And we all love a good joke. We all love to laugh. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And that shifts you from where you are at the moment to something else. And then when you're finished, it's sort of like having, when you sneeze and you feel like momentarily refreshed, you can come back at something in a different way. Another technique would be reframing, looking at things differently, journaling, support groups. There's also The other things that we would be talking about, not today, but that would come into play here is managing your resources. That'd be time and money, right? It would also be communication skills. But getting into some of the other things would be art therapy. Many of you may think that you're not good artists, but there's different ways to express your creativity. Hobbies, prayer, and forgiveness are also coping skills and techniques that shift us away from the stresses that we're facing. So this is one of my favorite trees. I don't know if Stacy recognizes that. It's down on the Chesapeake Bay, and it's an old soul. But I had to bring it in because, of course, that connection to nature, which we heard about in the last talk. But I'm bringing forth this idea of journaling and writing. And in that, there's a quote that is partially on the screen. It's from a woman, and I've been carrying this quote around for 14 years now. And it's from Nina Utney. There's a magazine out there called Utney Reader. And it compilates independent stories from all sources and puts them together. But she indicates that to make sense of our experiences by creating a story is probably one of the most essential human characteristics. And whatever story we tell to our friends, to our parents, to our loved ones, at any given time reflects our level of consciousness at the moment that we're telling that story. She goes on to say, at one point, we may tell a story of revenge or victimhood. Look, you wouldn't believe what happened to me, right? Or later, one of compassion or empowerment. It is an exercise, moment to moment, of free will, of doggedly looking for beauty, joy, and possibility that offers us the greatest hope for generating stories that will contain the creativity and the inspiration we need to solve otherwise insurmountable challenges. So you can see why this was so important to me, because we do tell each other stories. That's a natural human characteristic. And so what I'm encouraging you to do at this point is to write them down, to start journaling them. There's a new concept out that I was just reading about recently that said that by writing, by journaling, we are creating, and that's helping us to create something that's called post-traumatic growth. And so as we write, things appear. We get more awareness. Again, the coping mechanism, awareness of our problem, awareness of our stressors. And so this is why it's so important. So we are going to be doing an exercise, and so in your mind's eye, I want you to contemplate this, and then we're going to be sharing it. But in your mind's eye, what is your perfect life? And I'm going to express this. How many of you are planning to graduate this year or in the spring? By a show of hands. Woohoo! So I'm going to direct this to you, and then all of you, in your imagination, pretend you're at the end of this school year, and you are packing up your car to go home. And what story are you telling of the successes that you've had? What were the high spots? What brought you joy? What sparked that? And if you look at the slide, where are you going? What do you want to do? What is your ideal life? Where are you? Where are you working? Where are you living? These are your purposes in life at this point, right? To find these things for yourself. So anyway, I want you to contemplate that, and then I'd like you to find a partner either in front of you, behind you, beside you, just for about 2 or 3 minutes, and share what you're comfortable sharing about what story would you tell at the end of the school year. And then I'll call you back. Just share it with your partner. I invite your attention back here. So, I know that many of you have expressed this conversation to people that you trust and that care about you. And as you talk out these stories of what you want this year to be, what your story might be at the end of it, and what your future life might look like for you. We all have visions of that. And why is that important here, these stories? Because you give yourself a jump start on a new level of inspiration and energy and vitality and purpose. So when you get bogged down in the to-do list of what you have to do to get there, right? Keep that vision in mind and hold that, because that's what's driving you, that's juicing you up. And we have this question. In that vision of what you want to do between here and there, by May of this year, to make it very specific for you, are there any obstacles for you? I mean, that's a rhetorical question. I know it is. But what are the obstacles? And let me just read you this story very quickly. And I felt stuck. Why could I never achieve anything? Why could I never do anything tangible? Everyone else seemed to have no problem. You see, my friends could both work hard and grow themselves at the same time. Not me. I felt stuck. Every day I came home from school and work, and I was just exhausted. I had no energy whatsoever to study my Chinese Mandarin, a long-term project of mine, or to go for a jog in the nearby forest. All my energy had been put into a job that I didn't enjoy very much. I just knew that I could get more out of life. What I really wanted was to spend time on my own projects, to do what I loved the most. Well, to me, the only way I could shift my reality was to basically change priorities, to put life before work at school. But how? How does one do that? In practice, the only tangible solution I could see was to wake up early in the morning. Really, really early. That way, I would be able to pour all my fresh energy into what was important to me. But I can't do that. It's crazy, right? That would change my entire way of living. It simply doesn't fit the rest of the world. So I decided it was crazy and went on with my life. Until one day, when speaking to a colleague, we came upon the topic, and after a while, he asked me, "What would happen if you did?" What would happen? And his identification was that time. He had to get up really, really early. And the colleague said, "Well, what would happen if you did?" And so here's a coaching question to you for you to ponder. And we don't give homework in this series of wonderful talks, but we do give growth work. And so my growth work and opportunity for you is to ask yourself this question. What are your obstacles? When Dana's talking to people who want to lose weight, for instance, one of the things they may say is, "I have no time. I have no time to prepare good food. I have no time to go grocery shopping. I have no time to exercise." But they still have this goal that doesn't ever go away. So if there's a goal within you that does not go away, I offer you this question to ponder. So the quote on here, it's a little hard to read because the type is a little light, I think. But the quote is, "When we're no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." And it's by Viktor Frankl, who was a survivor of the Holocaust. He lost his mother, his father, his brother, and a pregnant wife in the Holocaust. And so he emerged as a physician and a psychiatrist, and he wrote Man's Search for Meaning. I invite you to consider that book if you haven't already read it. So when he speaks, I listen. And so when you are unable to change the situation, you have to change yourself, which comes back to coping mechanisms and coping techniques. So ways to reduce stress right now. What are some of the things that you would do right now if you felt edgy, if you felt anxious, if you felt a little down, can you give me some ideas on what those might be for you? Simple, simple. Listen to music. Oh, my favorite. It's interesting. Don't be in the parking lot waiting for me to drive out because you're going to hear my windows vibrating. Because I'm going to have my music cranked, right? Don't you have that, right? I love music, and it's one of my best meditations, actually. What else?
Closing my eyes for 5 seconds does me justice all the time.
Closing his eyes for 5 seconds. It's called a pause. So he's claiming a pause. Yes, thank you. Yoga. Yes. And I would mention Tai Chi because I'm a Tai Chi practitioner, but yoga, yes. Do you have your hand up back there? I can't hear you, I'm so sorry. Talking to someone. Talking to someone is such an essential part of our connection. If I would ask you, as a holistic nurse and as a wellness coach, a well-being coach, do you have any support system? Do you have a friend? And if you said, yeah, I have a friend, then I would go, okay, good. We would love to have more, but talking to somebody that you trust, that won't take that message beyond themselves is so wonderful. Anything else? What do you do for stress right now? Playing. Oh, praying. That was on my list. Thank you. Prayer is a way of saying, when I'm going through this tunnel and God's in charge, don't jump. It's not the time. You use that connection to a higher being and your spirituality. What else?
Sitting up and doing deep breathing.
Deep breathing. I so appreciate that because as a nurse, I have to tell you that taking deep breaths stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system. And so when it does that, it immediately reduces anxiety and nervousness. So if you take 3 long deep breaths, filling up your whole chest cavity, letting out really slowly, it works beautifully. Anything else? You guys should be up here. Well, another thing that I might offer to you is like giving a hug to somebody. Did you ever see those cards that said free hugs and how many people come up and get them? And I read an article one time about some famous person, comedian actually, and they said, what do you miss most since your husband died? She said, good hugs. And so consequently, this hugging somebody or giving somebody a kiss is such a lovely way to reduce stress right now. Have a cup of tea. So many different things. Oops, sorry. That was wrong. This is a cartoon. A commercial. I'm not endorsing the product. Couldn't help it. So what I wanted to say about that too is that your stress response at any time, wherever it comes up, whatever situation comes up, in your studies, in your relationships, at home, in getting work and having enough financial security to have a roof over your head and your apartment and a place to stay that's good and people that you trust and love around you. So your stress response doesn't matter what's happening to you as much as how you respond to it. So we can take in some of these things that are difficult and hard. And so what this doesn't mean is that it helps when you have awareness and connection and strong relationships because it is your approach, it's your cognition, it's your awareness and how you show up for the stresses that will come to you. So I'm going to do a little bit of movement with you because you had mentioned yoga and then I had to come back with Tai Chi. But I've been in an intentional group for 18 years, so I do this once a week. We meet for Tai Chi and meditation, and we solve all the problems of the world, and then we have a potluck. So to integrate everything that we've done. So I'm going to teach you a little bit of what I know, just a little bit. So what I'm going to do, if you're able, if you're not able, you can stay seating, but otherwise, if you wouldn't mind just standing up right where you are. The three intentional corrections that we're going to talk about right now are things that I would invite you to do before you answer your phone, before you speak to another person, before you have to take a test, or before you write your papers. It's the three intentional corrections that bring you into present moment. So the first one is posture. And so when you're standing, of course, your feet are on the ground. And while your feet are on the ground, imagine that there's roots growing out of the balls of your feet into this floor, down through the building, down through the foundation, and down into the earth. And that's what we call grounded. And the other posture and corrections will be putting your shoulders down. So to know if they're down, inhale and bring them up. Exhale and let them drop. This is where our shoulders belong. We walk through life like this, don't we? Because we're always ready to respond and to be on to be able to respond. The next one is imagining a string on the top of your head that connects to the ceiling. So it brings your head up just a little bit, right? And as it connects to the ceiling, imagine it going through the ceiling, through the roof, up into what we might call heaven. I don't know what you would call that. Collective consciousness? Whatever you call that. Imagine you being connected to that right now. So you're connected and aligned right now by your posture. The last thing, and this is really funny, is put your tongue on the roof of your mouth, right behind your teeth, and that connects to meridian systems. The next one's your breath. We already talked about that. Thank you. And I want you to inhale deeply. If you don't know how to do that, take 2 inhalations where you go. Now you're filling up your whole chest cavity, and then release it slowly. And I'm going to ask you to do that at your own pace. I don't want anybody hyperventilating. And then the third intentional correction is consciousness. And in that consciousness, I ask you to celebrate or forgive your past, but let it go. The second one is to give up your anticipation of the future. I know we're looking at the time, getting anxious, getting ready to move on, but give it up and be in this room right now. Right now, just right in this room. And listening to the sound of my voice. And so I'm going to teach you just a few moves from Tai Chi. Easy, 5 movements instead of the 108 that I practice. And so, if you will, keep your hands at your side, and then slowly let them float up to your chest level, and your hands are facing each other softly, as if you're holding a beach ball. This is what we call the chi ball. And put your hands in and out, and see if you feel any sensations in your hands at all. Okay? So this is the opening. You just did the opening for Tai Chi Easy. And I'm going to just keep it to some really short ones. I'm going to show you the last movement, which is gathering heaven and earth. So without knocking the person out next to you, reach your hands out and then reach down towards your feet, keeping your back straight, and gather up all the blessings of the earth. And bring that back up to you. And just try to feel it. Be aware of it. Now reach out and look up and gather all the blessings from heaven down to you. One more time. Reach out and gather all the blessings from the earth. This does have a martial application. And now reach up and gather all the blessings of the heaven down to you. And right now you're going to put one hand on top of the other right below your belly button. And this is called your dantian. And some of you have had this practice and know this very well. But this is your center. This is, in the Chinese, this is believes where your power comes from. So you have one hand on top of the other, and you're rooted and you're aligned. You're breathing at your own pace. You're in this room and you're not anywhere else. And you've gathered all this energy. And then I'm going to show you the ending. And just very quickly, with your feet shoulder width apart, standing with knees soft, what you're doing right now is called the standing horse position, and this is a standing meditation. And this is what you can use at any moment to just take that pause that we were talking about earlier. So the ending is you bring your left foot in, so your feet are together. You bring your hands out and around. Your left hand is open and your right hand is a soft fist, and you put them together. And you give a little bow for your partners, for how they show up in your life. And you say thank you in your mind. This is a gesture of thanks to your partners. And I'd like to give this gesture to Dana, who had to run off for her class, and for Dr. Irwin, who has brought this here. So now you know you can do this to your partners.
Thank you very much. I think we all have a few things to think about. I'm going to be very brief here at the end. There's two quick things I want to tell you. Until 6 o'clock, the hands-on Happiness Expo is still going on in the SMAC multipurpose room. I believe there are dogs and adult coloring books and some cool things over there. So you still are going to be able to catch that. Shh. One other thing. We have a guest speaker tonight coming at 7 o'clock, and that is Dr. Justin Wolfers. If you're available tonight at 7, he was named one of Time's best Twitter feeds of 2013. He has a lot of interesting things to say about the economy of happiness, the most happiest places on earth. It's not Hershey. You might have thought so. That's the sweetest place on earth. The happiest is somewhere in Europe. But it's always good to know geographically where the happiest place in the world is. So otherwise, thank you very, very much for your mindful attention.